Thank you, Cantor. When my kids were younger, I remember one incident in particular. My son was invited on a camping trip with a classmate from high school. And we talked about being out of town with this classmate and his family camping. And the hosting family was not Jewish, and so we packed some food for my son, and I spoke with the mom from the family and talked about that my son would be bringing some food and that he really knew in terms of what he could and couldn't eat, not to worry. If they go fishing, he knows to identify what he can and cannot eat, that it should all be great, no worries. And then my son's packing for the trip, and as he's packing for the trip, I watch him grab his tefillin and put his tefillin into his bag to go on the camping trip with the family that's not that familiar with Judaism, and that's when it hit me. And what hit me was tefillin. When we're used to it, and it's part of our habits and our ritual, we know what we're looking at. But when we're not, and we look at tefillin, it actually can look very strange. And so my son and I had a discussion about the tefillin. And when he's putting on his tefillin, maybe if he's more comfortable, he can walk a little bit away from where they're camping and find a private place and put tefillin on, or if not, then he can expect some questions, and is he ready to answer those questions? And really it's that idea of when we have these things in Judaism, bringing it back to the parsha this week of because, we look at particularly tefillin, and it is being discussed in the parsha, and we do have to ask the question of what are we doing? Because why? What is this tefillin thing we're being told? And tefillin are the two square boxes that are part of ritual. One box is placed on the top of the forehead, the other box is placed on the arm. It has leather straps. The strap is going to go down the back, another strap is going to wind around the arm. We're very careful about kosher tefillin, about looking at exactly what is it that would make tefillin kosher and what would impact the tefillin that now we could say, well, we can't use those tefillin. Where exactly are we getting it? And what is this? What is the mystery of tefillin? And so when we look at tefillin and we ask ourselves, why are we commanded to do this? We look at what is going on in the details of it. So everything that will make kosher tefillin in terms of the manufacturing of it, everything has to come from nature. The parchment of what we're writing inside the tefillin has to come from an animal. The threads that were being used to sew it all together has to come from an animal. The scribe who's going to be scribing on the parchment has to use a quill that comes from an animal. It's all coming from nature, and everything in there, the leather straps have to be leather. The casings around the tefillin are leather. It's all coming from nature. And then we encounter one last detail, and that last detail for kosher tefillin is that the boxes must be perfect squares. They have to have right angles. If those squares, the perfection of those angles are compromised, the whole thing now is not kosher. And that's where we look at it and say, oh, because perfect squares don't exist in nature. We don't have that kind of thing. We have to manufacture perfection. We have to go in there and measure the angle. We have to protect it by putting it in a case in the bag, in the tefillin. We're protecting the angles because they're not coming from nature. That's man-made. We have to do that. We have to measure it. We have to create it. We have to protect it. So when we look at it and we say, wow, so now I'm looking at everything that's combining into the tefillin. Part of it is nature, and it's even expressing in nature in its symbols, because I've got two letters sheen that are going on one of the boxes, and one of the sheens has 3 prongs to it, and the other one has 4 prongs to it. So when I add that together, the sheen is making up the number 7. 7 brings me back to creation. Creation brings me back to nature. No matter which way I'm going to go round, I'm going to end up there. And the only thing man-made is the perfection of the 90-degree angles of the perfect boxes. So I bring them all together, and now I look at the thing and I say, I'm beginning to unpack. I'm beginning to understand because. And when I look at the leather straps, one side of the leather strap has to be black. And there again, we understand the symbolism of the idea that black represents the mystery, that I'm being invited in to the mystery. And now when I look at it and I say, okay, I want to start to unpack all of this and I want to understand. I'm looking at a partnership. I'm looking at the fact that I'm taking nature and what God put into nature as the creator, and I'm partnering it with something man-made that is crucial to making this kosher. And it's only when those two things are being expressed together do I now have kosher tefillin. And then I look at the Midrash, and the Midrash says in an amazing statement that God actually puts tefillin on. So when we put tefillin on, we're modeling on God, and of course, God bless us. The sages are going to ask, so what's in God's tefillin? If in fact our tefillin has our statement of commitment to God and our pledge to God because we put the Shema in there, what's God putting in God's tefillin? And the Midrash tells us God puts the essence of Israel into God's tefillin, the name Israel. And names are essence. And now we're piercing further and further into the mystery to understand what's going on. Names are essence, and we're back to this week's Parsha. Because this week's Parsha, Akev, we were told has two meanings to the word. The first one is because, and that's what invites us into the mystery to answer essential questions. But the other one Rashi told us was it means the heel of your foot. The heel of your foot is actually the name Jacob. The Torah told us that's why he was named that way. And Jacob gets a name change, Israel, except the Torah continues to use both names. He is referred to as Jacob sometimes and referred to as Israel sometimes. So sometimes the name Jacob, the heel of the foot, tells us there's going to be a roundabout way to get where you're going, like the curve of the heel. And sometimes the name is Israel, Yashar, straight. There's a straightforward way to get to where you're going, and you will embody both, because your name is your essence, and we carry the names of both Jacob and Israel. So when I come back to the idea of Akev being because, why do I do the Jewish things I do? Well, one of them could be that sometimes I express myself as Jacob. I'm going to answer the question, why do I do the Jewish things I do? I'm going to unpack the things I do. I want to enter the mystery. I want to understand in that very roundabout way to gather all the information in because it enriches me. Sometimes I want the straightforward answer. Why do I do the Jewish things I do? Because I was commanded to do it. I need Jewish automatic right now. I don't have time to unpack. I need to put the tefillin on quickly. I have a meeting. I have a schedule. I'm headed for the straightforward. The beauty is they are both equally relevant because they are both sitting in the same word, Akev. One of them is about my journey. The other one is about my arrival. I am Jewishly in both of those ways. And when I understand that this is the essence of who I am, and that it is the Torah that taught me to value that in me by placing both of those meanings within that one word, I can start to celebrate being true to me means I don't have to always do the Jewish things I do in only one way. Sometimes tefillin is an automatic ritual, but sometimes I can choose to look at it and enter the mystery. Shabbat Shalom.